there, everyone. I'm Dr. Emmanuella Ejime, currently a lecturer in digital marketing communication with the Bournemouth School, and also the current Race Equality Network co-chair here at Bournemouth University. And I have here with me...
I'm Grace. I'm a third-year journalism student here at Bournemouth University, and we have Alison. Would you like to introduce yourself, tell us what your official title is?
Yeah, hello, I'm Professor Alison Honour and I'm the Vice-Chancellor and the CEO at Bournemouth University.
Thank you, brilliant. Now, as part of this year's Black History Summit, we have in person joined with us our Vice-Chancellor and Chief Executive Officer of Bournemouth University, Professor Alison Honour, with over 25 years in various leadership roles and also just being a resilient leader overall. Now, we're going to try as much as possible to explore the current theme of this event, which is the Black History Month Summit, which is in itself resilience, representation, and reformation, and how we are shaping the future together here at Bournemouth University, and also including our external partners that we do have. Now, one of the things that we do have today is to have series of questions here with Professor Alison, where she's just going to talk to us, and then we're also going to share with her aspects that are related to the staff as well as the students. Now, this year's summit in itself is about community, bringing together not just the staff and the students, but also our alumni and also the external partners to reflect, to learn, and to celebrate. And it's also a time to look honestly at how far we've come and what more we can do to make sure that there's inclusion, equality, and also diversity in our routine in our day-to-day life. Now, on a personal note, I'm talking here in my person and also based on my professional journey as being a Nigerian lawyer and also coming into the UK and also transitioning from that into academia, and how this particular theme and topic means a lot to me because my own story in itself has been shaped by resilience, identity, and also belonging. So I see this summit as an opportunity to create a space where others can also feel led to give their voices, to share their journeys, which is the reason why we have the summit that encompasses the showcase as well as a panel and workshop for everyone to feel very included. Now, we're going to start with the questions. Okay. Professor Alison, one of the questions I want to begin with is why we think it's important to you, especially not just to you itself, but then to universities as a landscape, why it's important for us to engage with the Black History Month in itself, whether or not it's about ticking a box or actually creating the impact, which is in itself the History Month in itself. Yep.
So I think, first of all, I think universities are places where we want to celebrate difference. We want to ensure that we're creating an inclusive community because that brings us incredible strengths as an organisation, as a place where we can develop, nurture, attract diverse talent, both in our students and our staff. So part of that, I think, is understanding those different communities and thinking about how do we celebrate that, because so often where we've got communities which actually are potentially the global majority have potentially been marginalised. And so by, I think, celebrating something like the Black History Month, and let's say we could do a whole year, right? Because there's probably enough to celebrate, right? There's probably more than enough. I think that's about an opportunity to reclaim, kind of re-speak, and kind of reframe the conversations. So, and I think that's really important because I think so often things haven't been recognised, the story hasn't been told, the history has not been articulated and re-owned. And I think there's something really important about Black history, particularly because of that word history. And that's about, for me, and certainly for my own members of family, who are also Black members of family, that's really important because that is about their history and about owning that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Professor. I also like the fact that you've touched on the reclaim, the reframe, and also the rehone, which is quite important for the Black history as well and what it's about. The next question is really about your past and also looking back at how you've previously led on transformative works that are related to the Black History Month in itself. And I could also see from the Birmingham City University, you were also part of the executive sponsors for the anti-racist commitment plan. And I'm thinking, okay, how then does that tie into your passion and what you can bring into Bournemouth University now in your current role?
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. And that was a really interesting time because obviously it was the Black Lives Matter movement. Yes. And there was a particular sort of narrative and voice amongst the black community of staff and students when I was at Birmingham City University. And I think being a leader, I think you have to continue to be a learning leader. And I think these are opportunities to listen and to learn. And it was a huge privilege to work with the students and the staff, but also a great colleague there that I worked with. And we, in a sense, all kind of contributed to the co-writing of that as a commitment plan. And I think the reason that we really wanted to position it as a commitment plan was because we wanted to be action orientated. And so we wanted to really hold ourselves accountable. I was a Pro Vice Chancellor Dean then. But nonetheless part of the university executive team, and I felt it was really important that we were holding ourselves accountable to what are we committing to here, and what is the action, and what are the outcomes, and where do we want to be in 3 years, because it's about change, and it's about how do we stay resilient as well and focused on those metrics that we're setting ourselves. And it's more about just those, it's more than the numbers. It was about the clear commitment and message that we're sending, particularly in a university where the majority of our students were from diverse communities. And I think that was a really fantastic environment for me to be within, and it presents different types of learning. So I think in terms of your second part of the question about what can we bring here, for me it's about what do our action plans actually say? How do we implement them? What's the timeline? What are we trying to change? Why are we trying to change? And who needs to be part of that change? So I think collective commitment is always important rather than it being top down or bottom up. It has to be collective, because it can't be siloed and it can't just be a piece of paper, right? It has to be active, it has to be lived. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think also this particular conversation we've had already ties into the next question which we're looking at. Now stepping into your role, which I already know is almost a year now. Congratulations.
Just over a year.
It's over a year already.
I know,
wow.
I know. I'm feeling it.
I know. Probably.
Yeah.
Yes. The question now comes into what are then the priorities that you think are, like you mentioned now, are the priorities that you want to try as much as possible to embrace, that tries as much as possible to touch on the three key areas: equality, diversity and inclusion, and how this can be embedded into Bournemouth University, taking on from the examples you've said and the transformative changes that you've already created in the past.
Well, I think first of all, obviously we're really celebrating Black History Month, but I think we really want to be thinking about that EDI, the equality, diversity, inclusion in the broadest sense, because of the intersectionalities, right? So we don't want to lose sight of those intersectionalities, those complexities that we all have within our own communities. So I think all of those elements, and I'm so pleased that at Bournemouth University we have ED and I, because I think it's really important, and many institutions have dropped the D, and I think that it's really important because I think the diversity piece really celebrates the entire difference. I think that's so important, and the equality, we can also talk about equity, and we can talk about what does that look like and how does that feel different, and what do we need to do to even the playing field, right? And then the inclusion piece is that real sense of belonging, so putting ourselves into check to really think about how inclusive is everything that we do, from how we recruit students, how we attract them, how we welcome them onto an open day, how we design our curriculum, who's teaching, how are we teaching, what are we teaching, right? So the full piece, how we support our students. And let's not forget that a more inclusive society and a more inclusive community means that mental health is much better. And so that's really important for our staff and students because they want to feel like they're part of something. Being othered and feeling not part of something is probably one of the worst feelings you can have, I think. So I think in terms of the aspirations, I think that's got to be first and foremost. How do we develop a community which celebrates all of those things? So, and there's so many reasons that you would want to make sure that you're doing that so well. Yeah, there's so many benefits of that to everybody.
There is. Thank you so much. And I think also this again ties into the next question that we had, because again, I could already see that you already are aware of some of the challenges, but again, the broader sense of it is also understanding. Looking at your role currently, what do you think are the critical current challenges that these international students, I'm not just thinking about Black people alone, I'm thinking about everyone, both staff, students, alums, external partners, how they're feeling, especially like the challenges, and looking at today's climate of what we have now and the changes that are happening. What exactly are the challenges, and how, again, would you tend to prioritize the solutions and when you think about it in terms of, you've mentioned now from the grassroots up to the upper level, like what exactly would be the solutions that you also would definitely try as much as possible to implement to help out?
So I think first of all, we are in a very interesting, difficult, problematized culture at this point. So we've got a political background in the UK and around the globe, around the challenges where there is, let's say, more of a right-wing kind of movement. And I think, that's something really difficult for this country and also for universities as progressive, educational, inclusive organisations where, absolutely freedom of speech is really important, and we're legislated. We need to ensure that we are upholding freedom of speech. And we also want to make sure that we are creating an environment where we can think, debate, critically evaluate, critically engage, but to do that respectfully, to do that in a place where we can have those intellectual discourse. So I think those are some of the challenges, I think, in terms of the geopolitical situation as well. I think once there is more destabilisation, tensions tend to rise. And I think that's what we've seen around the globe at the moment. There is a sense of things not being particularly stable. So I think what we have to do is we have to make sure that it can't just be policies. Policies are important, but the practice and our procedures around how we ensure that this is a place where everybody feels safe. And that's really important. And when I welcomed the international students, that was something that I really wanted to make clear. You are safe here. You are welcome here. You will I always want you to feel that there's always somebody that you can, ask, get help from, support from. I think that's the first thing. Let's make sure that everybody feels safe. And for me, that means around, yes, it does mean around our policies, it does mean around our practices, it means how we behave as staff, it means how we behave as leaders, and how we develop that culture within our students and our staff. And that's really important. So I think let's focus on culture and make sure that we are celebrating all those things that I've just talked about and able to work in that way together. And I think just to understand what that brings to an intellectual place of learning like a university is so important. So let's celebrate that. I think in terms of the priorities, so for me it's about making sure that students and staff feel safe, that our international students feel really welcome, that they feel really supported, that we want to learn from them. We want to celebrate their cultures. We want to have opportunities across the campus, because internationalising the look and feel of a campus is one of our priorities as we go forward. That means food, it means space, it means celebrating different kinds of ways in which we work and where we study. I learned an awful lot from working in different countries and learning about the pre-education experience of those students coming into different countries, whether it was Malaysia or Singapore or China or India or Thailand. Never been to Nigeria, but I think, would love to. Would love to. I think understanding that pre-arrival, because we all teach differently around the world. So we need to think about that as well, how we embrace that in our pre-arrival experience and how we can ensure those students are taught to bring out the strengths. True. And the assessment is aligned to that, as opposed to trying to do something which isn't designed, right? So it's that designing of the curriculum. So I think some of the priorities for me is internationalising the look and the feel of the campus and our curriculum. Brilliant. Global. It's about a global outlook, because many of our students, even if they're from the UK, will inevitably probably be working in a global way, right? So they'll be working within different global contexts, they'll be running global teams, even if they're based in the UK, because of the ways in which we can work now with technology. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I think, again, you've touched on all of the key aspects that I think helps to hone down on your desire and your passion for such change, which I'm very happy with. I'll just let Grace now take on the floor, because she has a few questions as well she wanted to ask.
I should also mention that we're also doing a lot of work around international partnerships, because that's really important. In fact, I'm flying out to China on Thursday and I'm giving a keynote. And I think, working with and being with other international partners is really important, because it shows that commitment.
It does.
Yeah, to transnational education.
So you mentioned earlier about sort of the global political climate at the minute. In light of the anti-immigration protests in Bournemouth, How did that make you feel? Because there's a lot of kind of bubbling anger going on in Bournemouth, and kind of what procedures are there in place for ensuring the safety of the international students that make up such a big population here?
So we obviously got the heads up that those protests were happening. There was a march that was going to be taking place all the way down, I think, into the centre of town. So we knew exactly what the routes were. We had safety measures in place. We had additional security. We wanted to make sure that our students were safe coming from halls of residence as well. So we did do that, and we have a great security team on campus as well. We have 24/7 surveillance, and we make sure that, although it's quite open, as you know, the campus is open. You can't get into the buildings without your swipe cards. That's really important. I think it's about, and that's why I actually mentioned that when I welcomed the international students as well, to say that that's not how we feel. That is a small view. We have a very interesting context here in Bournemouth because we have a lot of refugee, asylum seeking and communities within Bournemouth actually. So I think, you know, we have a very particular context here as well. So I think those are the things that we do. We just make sure that we're aware, that we make sure that students are aware, and that we put in additional safety measures. And we're really pleased to know that, you know, nothing happened. And I just think it's really important. I mean, it's an awareness that we have to have in any sort of space and where we live or where we study. And I've lived in cities myself. But that's the most important thing, is that also if there is an incident, that students know where to report it, how to report it, because that's really important as well. Yeah.
And finally, as we look to kind of throw to the future, what does racial equality inclusion look like at Bournemouth University in the future? And do you have any other final messages about kind of the real importance of this and the event that's going to be happening at the end of the month?
So, I mean, what does it look like? I mean, I would hope that it looks like all of those things that we talked about celebrating, right? So that we are this incredible kind of community which values, respects, celebrates, discusses, enjoys, you know, a bit like my own family and friends, you know, like round the table, right? And just learning more from each other, actually, learning more so that we can be a much more inclusive society, because in a way, we're a place of learning. So we want our staff and our students. And one of the great things about doing international partnership work is that our staff will be working in different contexts and visiting. And I think that brings back some really good knowledge about how, for example, students in that country are taught. So I think let's keep learning. Let's keep having great dialogue. Let's keep really celebrating how we all work together and how we have these conversations. Let's talk about it. Right, let's talk about it more, which is what you guys are doing, which is brilliant. And, you know, let's do that more. And just let's share more about our cultures, because that's where the really amazing, incredible, what I call exquisite collisions are, right? And then I think, so that's what I think what it looks like and feels like is that sort of sense of real sense of community. And I think as we go forwards, I would hope that we're known for the most diverse talent that we have as a university into every single corner of industry that is available. You know, whether that's as media students, whether it is our law students, whether it is our nursing, whatever it might be, that we're known as a talent pool of diverse students, but also that we've got fantastic succession planning for our staff, so that we're actually growing that diversity in our own lecturing staff, because universities have not had that diversity in their workforce, and that representation is really important. That's what I would say.
Perfect. Thank you for speaking to us today. It was amazing insight on the importance of Black History Month. Professor Honor will be joining us at the event at the end of the month in Pool Gateway, where there will be further panel discussions and a cultural buffet reception. Do you want to say your goodbyes?
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you also, Professor Alison, for today's brilliant talk. And hopefully we have more conversations about this in the future. Yeah.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it. Thank you.